Good evening, everyone. The time is now 7:30 p.m. Welcome to the Township of Old Bridge Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting, May 6, 2021. I am James Sullivan as the chairman of the board. I would ask you now to join me in reciting Pledge of Allegiance to a flag of our country. Pledge allegiance to
Allegiance to the flag
the United
of the
States,
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Silverman, could we have a roll call, please?
Sure, I just don't want to make sure I want to miss anybody who might be chiming in right now real fast. Mr. Connor,
Here.
Ms. Kilduff,
Here.
Mr. Scogno,
Here.
Chairman Sullivan,
Here.
Mr. Sachs,
Here.
Mrs. Shapiro,
Here.
Ms. Sawant,
Here.
Mr. Hart,
Here.
Ms. Drum,
Here.
and myself, Kim Silverman.
Thank you. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Old Bridge Township Zoning Board of Adjustment has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of this meeting by primarily posting in the municipal complex an announcement giving the time, the date, the location, the agenda of this meeting. Also by mailing such announcement to the Home News and Tribune. Also filing a copy of such announcement with the municipal clerk and posting this meeting on the Old Bridge Township website. I briefly just would like to explain a few things to those that may be watching from home. This meeting is being conducted via the internet by a webinar. It's obviously unique. It takes patience for all involved as we're no longer gathered inside the municipal building, but we're doing so from our own offices or homes. This meeting is simultaneously being televised by OBTV Channel 15, as well as YouTube Live. I remind those watching on TV that there's up to a 30-second delay in communication. This will be important to remember if you wish to personally join the public portion. Anyone calling in must lower the device that you're watching on, otherwise you'll be confused by the time delay. I would ask all participants to silence their phones at this juncture to avoid any disturbances this evening during testimony. The meeting follows the same protocol as if we were in the courtroom. There's some general housekeeping issues to be taken care of tonight and followed by one application. I don't think there'll be a need for a recess tonight, but should there be, you will be notified if you're watching from afar. If the stenographer may need a break or one of the professionals ask for a recess. As in all applications, there is a public portion that follows testimony. So if you have particular interest in the matter that's going to be presented before the board this evening, the application, and you wish to ask questions via the telephone, your cell phone, I suggest that you take notes during the presentation to refresh your memory. Now would be a good time when we're going to do some housekeeping issues to get a piece of paper and a pencil to take some notes. There are some other issues that I've probably missed, and I'm going to ask the moderator of this meeting, the Township Planner, Venus Sawant, to cover those bases.
Good evening, all. A couple of reminders. Zoning board members will be unmuted during the first half of the meeting when they will be required to vote on other agenda items. The zoning board attorney, the zoning board chairman, the zoning board secretary, and the court reporter will remain unmuted throughout the meeting. Everyone else will be muted once the presentation for the application begins. The applicant's professionals will be asked to turn on the video and unmute themselves in the order in which they will testify. For the public, I will announce the last 4 digits of the caller's phone number to come forward, announce their name and address. I will also announce the last 4 digits of the next caller's phone number so that they will be prepared. We will share our screen to display any exhibits. The meeting information will be displayed on the screen multiple times during the meeting so that any resident who wishes to call and join the meeting can do so. Please be patient. Each one of you will have an opportunity to speak. Also, please be mindful that there is a 30-second time lag in the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sawant. Board members, item number 2 on the agenda, we'll take it as written, is minutes, and they were from April 15, 2021. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to review them. Absent any commentary, I'd ask someone to move them for adoption.
Move it to approve, Connor. Second, Kilduff.
Moved in second, roll call, please, Ms. Silverman?
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Ms. Kilgore,
Yes.
Mr. Scogno,
yes,
Chairman Sullivan.
Yes. We're missing some people here, I see, right? We're only down,
Yes,
we're down to 4.
I saw Mr. Dewhurst before him, but then he hopped off. I don't know what happened.
Mr. Sachs, we meet quorum here?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do have a quorum. We just need 4 members to start the meeting.
Right,
Certainly, when we get time, when we announce the next application, I'll speak to Mr. McGowan and see if he still wants to proceed forward with just 4 people here this evening, because it does involve a use variance, and he would need five affirmative votes. But let's see if Mr. Dewhurst pops on between now and then.
correct, okay. Ms. Silverman, are you aware of any members that were going to be absent?
I was only aware of 2, and Ms. Andrew was going to be a little bit late. Ms. Chevalier and Mr. Stoner, those are the only 2.
Okay, well, we'll see how it moves along. All right, item number 3 is escrow deficiency resolutions. 17-19Z 220 Gordon LLC for $2,000 owed, and 37-19Z Vision Old Bridge 3, $2,000 owed. Someone want to move those, please? I'll move the resolutions. Is there a second?
Second, Kilduff.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Ms. Kilduff,
Yes.
Mr. Scogno,
yes,
Chairman Sullivan,
Yes.
and I think I saw Mr. Dewhurst on there. Mr. Dewhurst?
There's John. We can't hear you, John. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Okay, next, item 4 is resolution. It's 13-2021Z, AJA Legacy, Manuel Medina, C&D variance. Mr. Sachs.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is application 13-2021Z, applicant AJA Legacy Manuel Medina. It was an application for D4 and C variances. Property located block 11238, lot 1412, located at 44 Amboy Road. This hearing was conducted on April 15th of 2021. Property located in the R30 residential zone. If the board will recall, the subject property located at 44 Amboy Road is an undersized lot. The lot measures 6,534 square feet. Located in the R30 zone, requires all lots to be a minimum of 30,000 square feet. Based on the permitted FAR for this zone of 0.14, a conforming house would be limited to a total size of 914.76 square feet. Existing home is 827 square feet. The applicant is proposing to construct a dwelling of 2,137 square feet, which translates into an FAR of 0.33. The applicant's proposal is to construct a second-story addition to the existing home, expand the footprint of the existing first floor, and construct a detached garage on the property. There were a D4 floor area ratio variance required. The requirement in the zone is 0.14, existing is 0.238, proposed is 0.33. And there were 3 bulk variances for minimum rear yard setback for the principal structure, minimum side yard setback for the accessory structure, that being the garage, and minimum rear yard setback for the accessory structure, the garage. There was testimony from several witnesses. Mr. Medina, who in essence indicated that he would agree that the height of the proposed garage would not exceed 15 feet, and that with a footprint of 14 feet by 26 feet, it'll be less than the maximum of 600 square feet permitted in the zone. There was testimony of Mr. Henry Hinterstein, his professional planner, who covered all of the necessary planning proofs. The application was approved on April 15th. The only additional conditions of approval is that the applicant agreed that the proposed garage will not exceed a height of 15 feet. So what you have in front of you this evening is the resolution for memorialization.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Board members, you've heard the resolution as read. So going to move it for adoption.
I'll move it, Connor.
I'll second it, Scogno.
Moved in second. Roll call, please, Ms. Sullivan.
Mr. Dewhurst,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Ms. Kilduff,
Yes.
Mr. Scogno,
Yes,
Chairman Sullivan.
Yes. Right, that moves us to our only application for the evening. I'll read it in first and let's see if the attorneys want to have a conversation after. This item is number 10-2021Z. It's in the SD3 zone. The applicant is Two Girls Waterworks Road LLC. That's block 6017.11 lot 9, located on Old Waterworks Road. It's for a concrete plant with recycling facility. Amended preliminary and final site plan. However, I believe this needs another use. We'll let them talk about that. Robert McGowan is representing the applicant. Mr. McGowan.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We do have 5 members now participating.
Yes.
This presentation is also being recorded, and we have a court stenographer who will be producing a transcript from tonight's meeting. What we are presenting to the board is not new to the board. You've seen it twice before, essentially. The principal change from what we presented to the board last time and what's being presented this night is that we applied to the county for a Class B recycling license. The lower class one, we can recycle up to 3,000 tons per week, which is the least level of production. It was an expansion of what we had previously approved, if the board will remember. We were doing a concrete batch plant, and we realized that there was going to be leftover or residue concrete and excess concrete from what we produced, which would be brought back to the site. It would then be placed on the site, and it would be recycled. It's sort of been a project in process, if you will. If you remember, we started this in 2018. We had an amended approval in 2019, and we're back now. Over that time, changed from having an office building with 2 garages to eliminating the office building and having a 7-bay garage. We realized it would be better to enclose the concrete processing tower so that it could operate better in all weather. Plus, it would have less dust and it would have less noise in the neighborhood. So as we've gone through this project, while we thought we understood it fairly well at the very beginning, we became more educated as we've gone along. And part of that education is we realized that if we're going to be able to do recycling, which is a natural part of this process, that there's actually a need for it, and that some of our customers may also have recycling material which they're going to want to return to the site. So in order to do that, we needed to get a Class B license, and that's basically what we're here for tonight. It's been determined that because of that expansion of use, it's not just us anymore, but we are in fact going to have other customers who will be coming in and giving us product or taking product, that it needed therefore to be recognized as a separate use rather than simply an ancillary operation to the primary use of the concrete batch plant. As a result of that, the principal items to be addressed is what effect will those additional trucks that will be coming to and leaving the site have? Do we have enough parking? And how will the site operate in view of this change of adding a little bit more activity to the site? And we intend to address that tonight. With that said, I believe that the notice was found to be in order and that the jurisdiction has been established. And if we're ready to proceed, I'd be happy to have our engineer testify.
Mr. Sachs?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with the analysis provided by Mr. McGowan that if there was just going to be recycling of their own material, then that would be ancillary to the business. The fact that they may be recycling material of others that's going to be brought to the site, it does raise the issue of it being a separate use. I know the notice probably didn't specify the word use variance on it, but I do know that Mr. McGowan, being an experienced attorney, added the catch-all language that we all look for which is any other relief which may arise during the course of the hearing. And I think in Ms. Sawant's memo, it was pointed out about the issue of the use variance. So I'm comfortable with the notice at this point. I don't have any issues with it, Mr. Chairman. Now, we only do have 5 members here this evening. Mr. McGowan, it sounds like he's going to proceed forward with it. And he understands, I'm sure, that he's going to need 5 affirmative votes because it is a use variance. But that's his call at the time when we go for a vote. So.
Okay.
Correct.
He alluded to the fact that this is also on video that people could watch. So he may want to change his mind at the end and hold off on vote.
That's his determination, right?
Right.
But I think my suggestion is he does proceed forward. He can certainly ask for a vote this evening. If he feels that he doesn't want to ask for a vote this evening, then certainly the members who are absent this evening would have an opportunity to review this tape and review a transcript as well, since I know Ms. Masterton is here as well. So.
All right, so for the record and the board members understand, they're also not just amending the plan, they're seeking a D1 use variance for that recycling and bulk variances along with it.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm assuming all the board members have read up on it. Go ahead, Mr. McGowan, I'm sorry to steal your thunder.
Not at all. Thank you. Let me just reassure everyone, including Larry, that not only did I have the general language in there, specifically, I said that we're looking for, including the addition of a concrete pad for staging and sorting construction materials, which are to be recycled, together with such additional bulk and use variances pursuant to NJS 50.
Oh, then we're good.
and D. So we really.
We're perfect. We're good.
Good.
Not even an issue. Good.
Thank you.
Okay.
With that said, if we could have Brian sworn in to provide the engineering testimony, appreciate it. Brian Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name, spelling your last name, professional affiliation for the record.
Sure. Brian Murphy, M-U-R-P-H-Y. I'm a principal at FWH Associates in Toms River, 1856 Route 9 in Toms River. I'm a licensed professional engineer and planner in the state of New Jersey. I've been before this board and about 100 other boards throughout the state.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. We accept your expertise.
Thank you very much. Before you tonight is this amended site plan, as our attorney indicated. There's really only 3 changes occurring with the site plan. The parking is remaining the same. The building that was proposed previously as an office and garage is not changing. The bins really aren't changing. The only real change to the site is the batch plant is being shifted. And we have a concrete recycling area that we're now going to have. And the area underneath that, where that concrete recycling, we did have a stormwater recharge system under that. We're shifting that out from underneath there. It's still the same size, will function exactly as it was proposed before. But that's the only change as far as that goes. So those are really the only 3 changes that we're looking at. The shifting of the plant, the addition of the recycling plant, and the shifting of the recharge area. The hours of operation are going to remain the same for the whole facility, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Obviously, we may have a truck coming back after that time if it gets caught in traffic. Saturdays, 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we have 26 staff in relation to the batch plant and 2 staff for the concrete or for the recycling facility, basically a loader and a crusher. So that comes up to a total of 28. There were a number of waivers indicated in both the review letters. All those waivers were previously granted with the prior application. As they indicated, there's no changes to really the bulk of the site. It's only this limited to this small area of the site. And if you'd like, I can get right into the review letters.
I think that would, unless the board has any questions at this point, I think that would be the best thing for us to do.
No, we'll hold until the end, Mr. McGowan.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead, Brian.
The first letter is from Ms. Shapiro and Ms. Sawant. The dated May 5th, 2021. Generally, there's no issues with these. Just a couple items I wanted to touch on. As indicated, the site was previously approved. There were some comments regarding the architectural drawings and the previously granted waivers. I guess the first comment I really have is on page 9 of the plan, item 1G. The raw material storage bins, they're asking for those to be indicated specifically what's going to be stored in each one. We'd like the latitude of, obviously, if we have more concrete one day, we'd store it in 2 bins, or not be limited on what bin we're going to store, concrete or crushed asphalt or brick. Those are the materials that are going to be stored in those bins. It's just a matter of how much we have on a particular day. The other item is on the same page, page 9, 2C, the stormwater scour hole. That's on the southwest corner of the property. That's in the same location that was previously approved. It was also approved by soils, and that is where the drainage is going there now. We meet all of our reductions. We're looking to keep it in the same location. And that's the last comment I have on that letter.
Brian, before I let you move on, I'm gonna bring you back a little bit just to reassure the board that we're, it's a fairly long letter, and I want the board to feel confident that we have in fact addressed all of the issues. One of, if we go back to page 4, at the bottom there, it has table 3 bulk variances. It reflects 4 C variances that are required. All of those variances were previously addressed in our application, previously approved. Is that correct?
Correct. The C variances were.
Okay. If we then move forward to page 6, I would just ask the board to take a look at the comment from, I believe, Nicole, and it may be a joint comment from both Nicole and Vina at the very top of that page, in which she says, recycling concrete provides for sustainability in several different ways, and concludes that paragraph by saying the proposed recycling facility directly supports the recommendation of the master plan. The next section that addresses the parking and indicates that there's a minimum of 30 parking spaces that would be necessary. You've testified that we'll have 28 employees. Is that correct, Brian?
Correct. 28 total, 26 for the batch plant, 2 for the recycling.
Well, and the 26 for the batch plant actually includes the 20 truck operators as well. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And we have on this plan parking spaces in addition to the 29 vehicle spaces for cars or passenger vehicles. We have also truck spaces. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And in fact, they're double length. Is that correct?
Yes, they are.
So that if they pull out, if there was for some reason a need for extra parking, if the truck drivers were to park where their trucks are, you would have more than enough parking. Is that correct?
Yes.
Had one of the questions that Nicole or the joint letter proposes is number 4. Has the applicant applied for the NJDEP's air pollution control permit?
That has been applied for. I'm not sure if it's been issued yet, though.
Okay. There's also a discussion about the fence. And there's been some side discussion with the professionals for the township on that as well. And in fact, the fence is referred to in the traffic report. We'll come back to that later. But I do note that Nicole concludes that in her opinion, an 8-foot fence is warranted for this type of use. And I would just direct the board's attention to that under number 6. And the variance for the 8-foot was granted before. So the fence was previously addressed as well. Sidewalks, we are requesting a waiver for the sidewalks. The landscaping is not changed from before. Is that correct?
No, it has not.
Okay. I note that most of the other comments indicate complies. Okay. The proposed light poles, I believe that was addressed previously as well.
Yes, it was.
Okay. I would, at the bottom note, under engineering review and recommendations, site, where it says site plan A, it is noted that the applicant, which is correct, the applicant has been coordinating with utility companies for the relocation of the lighting poles. It's constructed, utility poles rather, constructed curbing and has already widened Old Water Works Road along the property frontage. So the applicant has been already active in developing not only its site, but in developing the area and improving the area. And I would just again direct the board's attention to that. There is a request at the end of that, at the top of page 9, that the applicant continue the concrete curb along the entire frontage. And I've been informed that the applicant would agree with that and perform that. The noise ordinance, I think the applicant previously testified that it would comply with the township noise ordinance, and we reaffirm that. On the page 11, design waiver is required for a light fixture mounting 30 feet. I believe that testimony has also previously been given because there's been no change in that. Is that correct?
Yes, it has.
Okay. Is the applicant proposing a foundation for the lights?
Yes.
Yes, and so you'll provide details on the plan.
Yeah, we'll provide a detail of that.
And the landscape plan should be revised to include site triangles. Each driveway will do that as well.
That's correct.
Okay. In the conclusion area, it says the applicant should indicate the status of the following outside agency permits or approvals. Middlesex County Planning Board. I don't believe we have any obligation to go to them, do we?
No, but we'll provide all approvals that are necessary.
Okay. All right, that would be it on the joint review letter from Bina and from Nicole. There's also a traffic review letter, which will be addressed by the traffic engineer, but there are some comments on that that you may want to give, Brian.
Sure. Starting on page 3, and I'm referring to the environmental resolutions letter dated May 3rd. So going to page 3, under site plan comments, item 4. Basically, as I indicated, these were previously approved. The parking lot's previously approved. There's no change to the parking lot whatsoever. The other item is item 8. We have the parking bays are 45 feet. We're proposing to keep them at 45 feet. Again, there's no change to that as well. The last page on page 4, item 9C. I'm not sure what the sight lines for the tractor trailer would be. From what I understand, the site easement is a site easement. And we have the site easements, and we'll have to keep those clear. And as we indicated, we'll add those to the landscape plan to ensure that they are clear. And item D, with the fabric and the chain link fence, we'll remove the fabric in that area so that it doesn't interfere with the site distance. And number 11, as our attorney indicated, the poles have already been relocated. And this is regarding increasing the curb radii. So we would look to keep that the same, as the widening has already been done. The poles have already been moved to the new.
The widening is consistent with our previous approval. Is that correct?
That is correct. There's no change to that at all. And the other items I have no issue with.
And I will go to number 10 just to inform the board. It's been requested a stop sign at the approach of Old Waterworks Road. It'd be recommended replaced. We'll certainly stick a new stop sign there, which will be part of the township property. And as far as the design engineer should evaluate the guardrail, we will do that, and we'll discuss that with staff. Are there any questions from Brian?
I have one. Is someone going to be talking about how the recycling plant operates and what kind of noise that's going to generate and what kind of traffic, or is that going to be all under, have we spoken about that?
The traffic engineer will be addressing obviously the traffic that's generated by that and how that functions as far as the traffic end of that, trucks coming in, trucks leaving.
Okay, well, but you're asking for a use to add a recycling plant, and maybe the people at home want to hear what that is, and maybe the board wants to hear how is that operated and what happens there?
What we could do is have John Vincenti, who is with me, as it turns out, in where I am. John works for the applicant, and he has been the project leader. So while he was not on our, witness list, he is available, and he really has the most knowledge on how that's going to operate.
Okay, whatever you want, Mr. McGowan. I just wanted to make sure that.
No, the point's well.
Because
very
you're
valid.
asking for a use, and I haven't heard what the use is.
Well, I guess the reason for that was that the use is what we had proposed before. The difference is that we're going to have some other people bringing in and taking out material. And that's what changes it now, not to be an auxiliary use. But we had described this operation before. But you're right, there may be public attendees here who would like to know what's going on, who weren't part of any of our previous hearings. So we will address that then.
Okay,
With
that's
that,
my
with
only
that said, let me have John join in and let him testify.
Okay, would you like to, you're going to do that right now?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
Mr. Sachs?
Mr. Vincenti, please raise your right hand.
Am I on?
Yep, you're on. Okay, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, please state your name, spelling your last name, professional affiliation for the record.
John Vincenti, Vincenti. I'm a licensed professional engineer, but I am employed by Level 10 Development, which is a subsidiary company of Esposito Construction. I've been employed directly with Level 10 now for approximately a year and a half. I'm going to just testify really as to the operations of the recycling facility, and not so much as a professional engineer associated with the site plan design.
That's fine, Mr. Vincenti.
You gotta mute that?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Unfortunately, we have two laptops here in the same room, so we're trying to minimize the feedback. So if that starts coming through, just let us know and we'll adjust one of the volumes.
Either that or you'll send Mr. McGowan outside. That's all.
So previously we had provided testimony that with the production of the concrete, when the ready mix trucks return to the site, there is likely to be a fair amount of residual concrete in those trucks. And we discussed the process by which that material would be brought back on site and recycled. And at that time, we had proposed a BIBCO unit, which would actually separate the waste or the returned material and separate it with a slurry mix and separate the aggregates. However, with the Class B facility, what will happen with that returned concrete, it will be deposited basically on the ground at the site, and it would cure overnight. And then what would happen is our loader would come and actually scrape that residual concrete off the ground and then deposit that into a crusher. And that material would be crushed and primarily sold to third parties as a different type of material dependent upon the aggregate size. So it's a change in that returned concrete because of the other waste stream of solid material. The large change is associated with the operation of Esposito Construction. Esposito Construction is a heavy site contractor, and during the operations at our various construction sites, there are opportunities where we have to we may be removing concrete pavement or concrete curb, and that material, without this Class B facility would likely be trucked to another facility that is operated as a Class B recycling center. We have currently a limited Class B license that allows us to take the concrete from our own projects. And we would like to expand that and take in the concrete from other sites. Now, this is not residual from a production facility. This is concrete or asphalt material that's generated through, it could be from a milling operation, it could be from a demolition operation, but it's brought back in larger chunks, and it would be deposited again on the ground. And then at some point it would be loaded into the crusher, and the crusher has the ability to segregate various aggregate sizes. So there would be approximately 2 to 3 different piles of stockpiles of the recycled and crushed concrete in the westerly portion of the site. And that material, some of it may be introduced into the concrete production, but the majority of that would be either sold to third parties or utilized in our site improvements for various, it could be road bases, it could be parking lot bases. So we have our own, Esposito Construction has our own fleet of trucks. So if the material comes from a site that we are constructing, it would be our own vehicles that would transport the material onto the site, or transport the processed recycled material away from the site. There would also be a certain amount of that material that would be sold to third parties. So third parties would truck that material themselves. None of the dump trucks would be parked on site or stored on site. It's just a situation where the material would be brought in on a regular basis and brought out on a regular basis. Now, how much of that material are we talking about? The license that we've applied for allows us to process 3,000 tons per week with a maximum of 1,000 tons on a daily basis. So we looked at the maximum daily output, and we calculated that equates to approximately 42 loads of material incoming on a daily basis and 42 outgoing on a daily basis. For that, based on that maximum of 1,000 tons a day. Again, though, that would not occur every day because we're limited to 3,000 tons on a weekly basis. So that information and the number of trips was then determined by our traffic engineer, John Jar, and he will basically give you some testimony as it relates to the increased traffic on a daily basis from the recycling facility. And essentially, if we take those 42 incoming trips throughout the day and 42 outgoing trips, that's a total of, I think, 84 total trips that would be distributed over the 12-hour period. We would be averaging approximately 7 new truck trips from the site on an hourly basis. But again, our traffic engineer will get into more detail as to the impact of that. That's all. That's all I have.
With, just one of the things though, at this point, the license that we're seeking, the Class B license, is so that we can sell this to third parties. We are currently able to bring recycled material to the site, crush it and process it, are we not?
Currently, as we stand now.
Yes, for
yes,
ourselves.
For ourselves.
Right.
However, the approval for the batch plant is conditioned on the fact that Esposito Construction will no longer use this location for their yard. So as we sit today, we are allowed to do that. But once we the current site plan approval, it did not anticipate Esposito Construction use of the site. So we're in a transition of that site. There were a number of tenants who were utilizing that site. They're now gone. Esposito Construction still is in process of demolishing and not demolishing, but removing the uses of the property. We still do utilize the property at this point for our some of our day-to-day operations associated with the trucking operation and the concrete recycling.
Okay. Are there questions from the board on this?
Mr. McGowan, I'm going to go to the professionals and then go to the board. I'll do that for whether they have one for engineer or either engineer. So I'll start with Ms. Shapiro.
So, Mr. Chairman, I just had a question for, Mr. McGowan. I would ask that either you or Mr. Vicente, I think I'm hearing feedback before, so, but Vina might have fixed it. Mr. Murphy, I know that you had said that the material storage, I'm just asking that you label just the material types that would be in the bins. You don't have to directly label each one. So if you want to put a note that the material storage would have sands,
Sure.
like any of the facility, like a small note on the side. And then I couldn't hear what the second, you had a second note that you had pulled out. What was that? Or what number?
Same page on page 9,
Uh-huh.
2C. And it's regarding the scour hole location.
Okay, and I think you did make that comment, I think the last time this application was in front of the board, and just for the board's knowledge, I think Vina and I had discussed this. Since this application was in front of the board, on this being the third occasion, and a different application number, we thought it was important to, one, reiterate any of the bulk or waivers that were on the application. And then number two, we took a fresh look, went back to the original technical memorandums and saw what still applied, carried that forward. And then we had added any of the additional comments that we had in the memo so that when we come to compliance resolution, we're not going to 3 different memorandums that were issued over the course of time, but we're just looking at one document to make sure that in this case, we get everything on the resolution if the board chooses to approve the application. So then, Mr. Murphy, am I to assume that other than those 2 comments, you're going to comply with the rest of the memo or the rest of the engineering, which starts on page 8 of the combined memo?
That's correct.
That was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shapiro. Do you have anything for Mr. Vicente on his comments?
No, but I appreciated the additional information. Thank you.
Yes. Ms. Sawant.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I just have one comment. I actually, while Mr. Vincenti was testifying, actually, I went back to look at our previous resolutions because I recollect that when the first time and the second time the applicant came in front of the board, there was no parking variance involved. The first time in 2018, when the applicant presented, they were seeking 2 front yard setback variances, one landscape area ratio variance, and the fence. The second time when they came in 2019, they withdrew the second front yard setback variance. So there were only 3 variances: front yard, landscape area ratio, and the fence. The parking variance was not approved previously, so I would want the planner to just provide proofs so that we have it on record. Ms. Drum and I had specifically talked about this. We do not have any particular objection to the variance, or we support it rather, but I just want that to be on record so that when we go through compliance reviews, I have consistent information. Signage. Is somebody going to testify related to signage, because there were no details submitted? Is there going to be any sign?
At this point, I don't believe there's been any signage proposed. Brian, is that?
No, there's none proposed, but if there is any, obviously we'd have to comply.
And yeah, if we needed a variance, we would obviously have to come back, but we don't believe we require much signage.
Sure. Just bear with me for a second.
Sure.
Okay. Comment F, design standards 10F, landscaping. There is some shrubbery within the right of way on Cheesequake Road as well as Old Waterworks Road that should be removed and moved to within the site.
Yeah, the landscaping, it's the same location that was previously approved. I see what you're saying, that the only issue obviously was we may have to eliminate some of that landscaping if we try to move it on site, because there wouldn't be sufficient room to have that same width of landscaping. I think the previous applications, when we looked at that, they'd rather have the bulkier landscape buffer there rather than having something narrower.
I would be comfortable saying that just remove it from the right of way, because maintenance becomes an issue. So I think the plan is pretty much compliant with the landscaping requirements. So losing that few shrubs on either right of ways wouldn't make too much of a difference. So I would suggest that you remove that.
Okay, that's fine.
I think that's pretty much it on my end.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. One, Ms. Drum, you have anything at this point? You're muted.
Yes, I do. Sorry.
right.
Just clarification, because when Mr. Murphy was speaking, he kind of broke up on my end. So on my letter under page 3, number 8, you made a comment that there are 45 feet now, the truck parking, but the plans show it as 60. So that's why I was just at the clarification.
Yeah, it's so we can double stack.
Okay. So, well, if it's okay.
Because it wouldn't have a trailer attached to it. It's double
Okay.
stack.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. No problem.
Yeah. Regarding number 4, I know what you're saying. It was originally approved. I think my concern is if you're trying to pull out of those spaces, you're heading right, to a parked car. I think if we could just rotate those 2 spaces just a little, then I think we can clean that up a little bit. It's a little funky. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
it doesn't come in as a 90-degree angle.
Yeah, I get that. If we wind up rotating it, we wind up losing parking stalls. So that's the only issue that I have.
No, I think it's just there's 2 spaces. If you need me to, I can actually send you a rough markup for your consideration,
Sure.
and then we can talk about that. And I think that was it. If you had any other, I know I heard you about number 11, and I heard about 9C and 9B.
Yeah.
And I think that was
The
correct.
sight lines would be the same for a tractor trailer, would, correct? I just wasn't sure.
Actually, they're larger, just because of their startup speed.
Okay.
I believe the bottom line on that is that we'll address all those issues. We'll certainly work with Ms. Dean to, satisfy whatever concerns there are.
Correct.
And that's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks for your
Dunlap.
comments.
Fire Marshal Hart. Anything? at this-
Yes, thank you, Jim. Mr. Murphy, is it a big deal to move the hydrant to the other side of the island?
Deal breaker. We're out of here.
Yeah. Only because of your 60-foot parking spaces, but yeah, it's not a problem.
No, that's not a problem.
Okay, that's all I have, Jim.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Fire
you.
Marshal. Back to you, Mr. McGowan. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Let me get the board here. Board
Sure.
members. The way I look at the screen. Anybody have? Oh, Mr. Scogno, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I have two questions regarding the recycling. How would one know the difference between the original and the recycling material that they're purchasing? There will be a cost difference, is that correct?
Basically, there is no cost difference. It's all stockpiled in the same stockpile, all commingled and crushed together. So it's basically marketed commingled.
Well, it's separated when it comes back, correct? And then broken down.
It's really not separated. It's all kind of commingled together.
You did indicate that you take it back from the trucks and then break it down and it separates from its material.
Well, it depends on what the source is. If the source is a construction site, it's really older concrete. It might be old curb. It comes back in chunks. If it's sourced from the ready mix trucks, generally that's green concrete that is flowable. They'll add a little bit more water in it in the truck, and then they'll discharge it on the ground. And then overnight it will harden and cure, and then will be broken up and put in the crusher. But it's really all commingled in the recycling area.
Yeah. So I can just imagine that it's reused, brought back and broke down and then sent back out again, comes back, you break it down again. After a while, I mean, what's the strength of this?
Well, it's only, first of all, it's only a small portion, and it makes up an aggregate portion. The cement portion is what gives the concrete the strength, and that is governed by the mixes. For the most part, though, the vast majority of the recycled material will not go into the concrete mix.
Okay.
It will go back out dry to sites, and generally will be used as aggregates on sites, as base courses in parking areas and pavements and things of that nature. The larger aggregate will be used for tracking pads at construction sites to address soil erosion control. But for the most part, it's all put into road bases.
Will it be labeled recycled?
Yes, as it goes out, it'll be all recycled material. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Jim, I would like to have one question for Mr. Jaw,
Go ahead.
the traffic.
Oh, wait, we didn't get to him yet. You gotta wait to get to him.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else on the board? Mr. Connor, I don't see anything. Okay, Vice Chairman Dewhurst, you're okay? Okay, Mr. McGowan, go right ahead. Oh, wait a minute, Mr. Andrews, go ahead. I see your hand. Unmute yourself. You have to unmute yourself. There you go. You're good now.
Okay, the recycling that's going to be coming in that is not for that particular site, in other words, it's coming from outside the area, How many more trucks will that be during that 12-year period, that 12-hour period?
I'm pretty sure that's probably going to be, the traffic engineer will speak about that, but
Okay,
I don't think Mr. Vincenzi was really, he did a quick overview, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. McGowan, your traffic engineer will probably talk about that, right?
Yes, that is correct.
okay.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. Back to you, Mr. McGowan.
All right, and with that, I'd like to ask for John Jar to be sworn in. He is our traffic expert and has substantial experience. John?
Thank you, Mr. Jar. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, please state your name, spelling your last name, professional affiliation for the record.
John Jar, J-A-H-R. I'm a principal with Brightview Engineering. I'm a traffic consultant and have been for approximately 30 years. I've testified on the previous versions of this application before the board. And I offer myself as an expert in traffic engineering and traffic consulting.
Mr. Jar has testified before this board many times over the years, and will certainly accept his expertise. Sir?
Thank you. Bob, may I go right ahead?
John, it's your turn. Go.
Okay, can I share my screen, everyone?
Go ahead.
I think Ms.
No, host has disabled participant screen sharing.
I think Ms.
Nina, can you help me out?
John, can you email it to me, please? Because I can't change this to allow you to share.
Ah, boo. What it
Yes.
is, I had everything all queued up on a PDF, the three different things.
Can you email it to me? I can quickly put it up. It won't take me too much time.
The thing is, I'm going different pages in the PDF. It'd be kind of cumbersome. It's okay. I can do without showing the display.
Sure.
It'll be all right. Yeah, it's okay. So what I'm gonna do is change this up a little bit. Then I'm gonna focus on I think I'm gonna just do a quick little overview from the traffic perspective. The one thing that I want to make very, very clear before I start is that overall, considering what was on the site.
John, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You should be able to share your screen now.
Oh, I can? Oh,
Yes.
that would be wonderful.
Yes,
Thank you, Vina. I'm sorry for any inconvenience.
no problem.
Okay. Hopefully everybody can see my little picture of the site. Yes?
Looks good.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So this is the existing site. This, for me being on the job for a little while and seeing this go through the process, I mean, we originally started looking at this back in 2016, 2017. I'd like to point out that one of the things it sounds like when I hear the other professionals talk, I hear John and our site engineer, it sounds like there's going to be all this tons and crazy amounts of traffic. Just so you guys know, overall, from when I first started on this project to where we are today with this new plan that they're proposing, the overall amount of traffic is actually less, and especially during the peak hours. Maybe it's kind of moderated for a whole 24-hour period, but it's very important to stress that the big problem we have in Old Bridge with the traffic is the peak hours are really rough. Any of us who are going to work between 7 to 9 and 4 to 6, we get crushed. I've had to drive through this area my whole life. I'm real familiar with all the pressure points. This facility that they're proposing operates significantly outside the peak hours. Generally, they start very early in the morning. They will go till 6 o'clock, but for the most part, the construction workers only work, 7 to 3. So the evening peak hour, which is the busiest in Old Bridge, is not affected by this development really at all. So just as an overshadowing thing I like to point out to everybody is this is a good, from a traffic standpoint, it's less traffic during the peak hour where we get hurt the most. Let me just give you a rundown of my understanding of how the plant's going to operate and who's going to where and doing what and what the traffic's going to be. So the first use I'm going to discuss is the concrete batch plant and garage. That's going to operate Monday through Friday from 6 to 6 and Saturday 6 to 1. There's going to be 20 truck drivers that work in this plant, and 6 men will work there constantly at the site. Now, the 20 trucks that work the plant are going to circulate. They're going to come, essentially they'll be there 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning and get their truck ready and get loaded up. And basically between 6 and 7 before the morning peak hour, they're going to be loaded up and heading off to their construction sites. That's probably the most amount of traffic the site's ever going to contribute to the peak hour roadway, which is very nice. The next part is the Class B recycling facility. Now, this is actually limited because the state gives them a permit only to do so much. So over the course of their operating period, which is 1,000 tons per day, which is the worst case scenario. I don't know how they're going to get that much concrete in and out of there, but if they were to ever get that much, that would mean that 42 trucks over the course of a whole day would come in and 42 trucks would go out. Now, I'd like to also point out that some of the trucks that are coming and going are serving multiple trips. And I, as a traffic engineer, I really don't have a way of breaking that up. So in fact, the 42 trucks may not really be quite so many trucks because they're going to be going and picking up concrete and coming back and processing that and retaking that. So the trucks I'm counting are kind of two-way. So we're really being very conservative and we're probably overestimating the traffic on this quite a bit. But my concern, as it always been, is are we going to cause any issues at Cheesequake Old Waterworks Road? And overall reduction in traffic. Level of service C is going to be maintained. Level of service C or better is maintained at this intersection. And then once again, just to point out, right now on the site or in my previous reviews of the site, there were 3 trucking businesses going there. Esposito Construction was there. The traffic was much, much more. Essentially, over the 24-hour period, considering what is previously there, okay, looking at the previous use, which I have observed myself from 2016, 2017, 2018, we're not counting COVID. It's actually about 100 less trips, which is a very nice, it's a good thing. And most importantly, these are not going to be in the peak hour. And that's very, very important to me in my review of work in Old Bridge because of the peak hours being so busy. Now, I'd like to answer, your traffic engineer has 3 very intuitive questions. I'd like to make sure that I cover them in detail. The first is regarding the operations uses and number of employees. That is the testimony which I just gave. The next is regarding the incoming raw material truck, outgoing recycled material. And we were just talking about that. So we're proposing, the site proposes there's going to be the 20 cement trucks, that are going to be coming and going all day long. They come in, they pick up, they go out. And then there's the recycling trucks, which over the course of a whole day is going to be 42. And those are your dump trucks and your tandem trucks and those sorts of things. And like I said, we're estimating a very high number to be conservative, but it's, I feel very strongly that we're going to be in good shape here. It's going to be lower traffic than what's on the site today. And with regard to the associated traffic impacts, once again, the real focal point here is, what's happening right here. Because as you go further and further from the site, this traffic disperses. So the real place for us to be watching is Cheesequake Road, Old Waterworks, Bordentown. And, based on our analysis, the intersection currently operates at level service C or better. And when this operation is cleaned off and you get the old operations out of there and put the new one in, that intersection will maintain a level of service C or better. And that concludes my testimony with regard to a refresh on everything. Do I have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, just so the record's clear, I think what Mr. Jar referred to with this aerial map is actually figure 1 on page 3 of 10 of his report, which was part of this submission. That's dated March 11th of 2021. Is that correct, John?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. Jar, let me go to Ms. Drum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the one thing that John didn't say that the board should consider is that you're actually going to have a kind of like a shared use here. So the trucks for at least what I'm gonna call the raw materials, they would be coming back to this site anyway, because we're talking about the concrete trucks. So instead of them going someplace else to basically, kind of get rid of the extra concrete, it's basically coming back to the site and is being reused. So I think, to support some of John's testimony, I think that's one consideration the board should have. Other than that, I don't have any direct questions for Mr. Jar, unless the board has any questions for me. I'm good.
Thank you, Mr. Rum. I'll go
Thank
to
you.
Ms. Shapiro.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any questions, but thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wong.
Mr. Chairman, I do not have any questions.
Okay, and Fire Marshal, anything?
No, Jim, I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sachs, how about yourself?
No, I have no questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, board members, please raise a hand in front of you so I can see. Mr. Scogno, go ahead.
Mr. Jar, how are you, sir?
Good evening.
Good evening. Mr. Jar, can you give me the traffic on which they're coming to the site? How will they get there? Never mind the little area that you're showing us, Old Waterworks Road and Cheesequake Road. How will they get there? And let's say they're on Route 9, coming either north or south. How will they get there?
Oh, hold on one second. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I hit the X button and I lost my whole Google Earth map that I had all ready for this question. I'm embarrassed. I'm
Well,
so sorry. One second, let me get it up.
Our secretary has provided the photo of the area, so.
Can maybe she put, can she put on the screen so we can kind of walk through it together? I'm pulling up right now where I'm at. So
Okay,
just give me
that's
1
fine.
second.
All right.
Just a moment, please. Okie dokie. Okay, 1 second. I got it. I found my place on the map. Now I can. All right. And let's see, how do I do this? Sorry, guys, be patient. There we go. All right. I'm going to go back to screen share, guys. Here we go. All right. So the first thing I'm going to share is this picture here. Okay. Now this is the one I'm showing from my report. Everybody can see that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now my report has a bad north arrow. It points to the left. Okay. So technically you're allowed to do that. It's supposed to be in quadrant 1 or 4. So we're okay. Now I'm going to jump and change a new share. All right. And I'm going to show you Google Earth. Okay. Now, hopefully everybody can see my.
Let's mark this as A1 with today's date.
Okay. So I'm going to, can everybody see the little hand on the Google Earth?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the site right here where my little hand is. You see Old Waterworks Road, Cheesequake Road. So what we have to do is we have to kind of back out of here, all right, in order to get a bigger view and see where we're at. Now you can see up to the top, we have Route 9. We have where 34 comes into 9. We're all familiar with these roads, right? Quite a bit of traffic up there. So the board member's question is, how are they going to get over here?
No, my question is, you're traveling southbound on Route 9. You would make a
Yep.
right on Ernston Road, take that down to Cheesequake Road, and then follow Cheesequake Road to the site. Or you would make a right on Perrine Road and then take Perrine Road to Old Waterworks Road. And that's the road I would prefer you to do, and not Cheesequake Road, because that's a residential area down there.
They can't use that, Leon. It's prohibited.
Yeah, I think there's a weight limitation.
Yes, it's weight limit.
Yeah, I
They
believe-
have
yep.
to come to line.
Yep.
Well, there's residential down further down Cheesequake Road is all residential.
They're not allowed to use that Cheesequake Road.
Oh, so they have to come in from Perrine Road.
Yes,
That's
Yeah.
correct.
And make a left onto Old Waterworks Road.
Right.
correct.
And Old Waterworks Road, if you follow Old Waterworks Road out, it just circles back around to Bordentown Avenue.
Mhm.
And either you go
Yes,
left or you go
essentially.
right.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
The most readily accessible route, though, is going to be Perrine to Old Waterworks.
Mm.
And, they're going to find the shortest, most efficient route because they're carrying concrete. So they need to get, back and forth to the plant in a relatively timely manner. So Perrine Road is really the most direct route from really Route 34 or Route 9. And there's a significant, this is a significant area in here where of course, the traffic volumes on 34 and 9 are quite heavy. So one would expect that there'll be, quite a bit of the traffic's going to come in from this route and come down Perrine to Old Waterworks,
Yeah.
which is mostly an industrial route. It's going to avoid all of this very sensitive in residential area, as
Yeah,
you so kindly pointed out. This is very sensitive in this area.
And the residents on Cheesequake Road use that Perrine to make a left to get onto. School buses use it.
Yeah, this
Residents use it and things like that. So I don't
Yes.
know how the study was done in comparison to that.
No, we haven't. That's very far away, Mr. Skungo, from our project study area, because the traffic volumes are so low that are coming from the site. Essentially, you're going to have, one truck. It doesn't even come out to one truck an hour. When you spread it out over the course of the day. Of course, it'll probably be 2 in an hour and then none, and it's sporadic. But because that's so far away, it's immeasurable for me to be able to study the traffic up at Perrine Road as it relates specifically to this site, because at this point it's dispersed so much where it'd be hard for me to know that it's the truck from my site. Other than, of course, we're going to have cement trucks. But like if it was a dump truck, I wouldn't know it was from our site or anything else around here going on. It's just too far away for me to have that as part of my study.
I'll tell you, those roads are really torn up over there with those trucks.
Mr. Scogno, if I can comment, if you don't mind, give you some background. Our office and Dina and Nicole's office, 2 things. One is we're working actually on a truck route for the whole municipality, and the Cheesecake Road, what I call it, further north of Perrine Road, that's actually going to be identified as a no truck route, just FYI. The second thing is Old Bridge was just granted $900,000 as a grant to actually improve parts of Perrine Road as well as Waterworks Road. So through the engineering department, that process is just going to get started this year. So just to kind of give you that information.
Okay, thank you very much. No further questions, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Scogno. Any other board member for comment? Okay, Mr. I'm not quite sure who that is. Okay, Mr. McGowan,
Yes, sir.
back to you. Mr. Jar is done, I would assume.
Yes, sir.
We have Dave Roberts with us to provide the planning support. Dave? Good morning, Dave.
I don't see him. There he is. Okay. Mr. Roberts, please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, please state your name, spelling your last name, and professional affiliation for the record.
The name is David Glenn Roberts, Roberts, a principal owner of DG Roberts Planning and Design LLC, the planning consultant on the project.
Thank you.
Is Dave's credentials accepted to the board? He's the director of planning down in Toms River and is engineering degree.
We'll gladly accept his credentials. as an expert.
Dave?
Chairman, yes, I think just a little bit of deja vu with this proceeding this evening, because as has been referenced in a couple of prior witnesses and by Mr. McGowan, his summary, we've been before the board on the site on 2 other occasions. I'm rewinding back to 2018 when I provided the initial planning testimony in support of the use variance for the batch plant, which did include this certain amount of recycling of the residual material from the trucks, as has been already referenced. If the board members recall, as a part of that planning testimony, what I had done was to try to get a feel for how this property came to be in its current configuration, and I actually did an analysis of historic aerial photographs. I was able to establish that going back several decades, it had been an extraction site where the material had been removed as part of the extraction facility up against the railroad. So the property is constrained by the configuration of Cheesequick Road, Waterworks Road, and the railroad right-of-way that runs behind it. The railroad right-of-way is significantly higher than the elevation of Waterworks Road. So we're effectively up against an embankment in that area. And as part of that, the configuration of the parcel, which is 964 feet wide and varies between 200 and 300 feet deep, was not conducive for some of the larger, more rectangular or square-shaped tracks that would be more accommodating for uses that are permitted in the SD3 zone, but particularly suited for the proposed use, which did not involve any large buildings like a warehouse type building. Simply as was proposed in the amended site plan, the 7-bay garage, and then had sufficient room for the batch concrete equipment and the concrete slab that was being used for collecting and crushing the residual amount of concrete that was coming off the trucks as part of that use. I also pointed out the proximity of several redevelopment areas to this site. The site itself is not included in either the Runyon or Waterworks Road 1 development areas, but is adjacent to those. At this point, there is still, to my knowledge, not a redevelopment plan for either one of those redevelopment areas. But because this site was particularly suited for this kind of industrial type of use, which did not involve large, expansive buildings, that would actually set an example for potential uses that potentially could be permitted in future redevelopment plans. But certainly that the site was suitable, and the proximity of more intense industrial uses in the immediate area of the site, such as the chemicals plant down the road and the existing Stavola asphalt plant, which is very similar in nature, certainly made this use such that it would not have any adverse impact on the surrounding properties. And because of the recommendations in the reexamination of 2017, would not have any adverse impact on the purpose intent of the zone plan and ordinance. And that was the summary of my testimony for the concrete batch plant. Tonight, we're basically looking at a modification of the recycling portion of that, as has already been testified to. And my testimony would continue to be that comparing the difference in allowing for materials to be brought in from other sources other than the residual from the concrete truck and being processed by the same machinery and the same layout, essentially as was already approved. And when you weigh that and compare that against the configuration of the site and all of the testimony that went into the original use variance, that this is really a minor modification of that use. I know it's been identified as a second principal permitted use because it is handling material that's not being generated by the process that's affiliated with the concrete batch plant itself. But for all intents and purposes, the main difference in the use is the number of trucks coming in and out has already been testified by Mr. Vincenti and Mr. Jar, and that's a minimal change in terms of the use, and certainly doesn't change my testimony in terms of why the site is suitable for the use and remains suitable for the use, even with the change in the Class B recycling capacity. And I would say that that the other item that's been brought up, and I think it was referenced in the professionals letter from staff, is the whole concept of repurposing and reusing waste material is also consistent with the sustainability goals and objectives in the township's master plan. I happen to also be accredited by the leadership and environmental and environmental design lead AP in both buildings design and construction and neighborhood development. And I would agree that the green building portion of those rating systems would actually assign points to what's being proposed tonight, which is capturing waste material wherever it comes from, whether it's from the site or from offsite, and repurposing it as Mr. Vincenti described, so that it does not enter into the waste stream, keeps it out of the landfill, and allows it to be repurposed for things like roadbed bases and other uses that would otherwise require the grinding and processing of gravel and other base materials from quarries. So there's a lot of environmental benefits to this process, and that would also be consistent with the township's goals and objectives of their master plan. So with all of that being summarized, I would say that, in my opinion, that the purposes of zoning that were cited originally, which are A, G, and I, continue to apply. That and that as far as the neighborhood, the negative criteria, that the modification of the use continues to have no adverse significant negative effect on surrounding properties, given the nature of the uses in the area, and what has already been testified in terms of the absorption of the additional truck trips, and that there's certainly no conflict or substantial detriment to the zone plan and ordinance because of the fact that this is an industrial area with similar uses that are more intense and on larger sites with more impact than the current proposal is that's before the board, and that with the recognition that there's redevelopment area criteria in the surrounding portions of this industrial area, that this would certainly be a use that would be consistent with special development. The only other aspect of the master plan was that there was an emphasis on improving the jobs to residents ratio. In other words, increasing the amount of employment as a ratio of the amount of dwelling units being developed in the township. And this proposed modification certainly is consistent with that. This is creating jobs on the property. And as far as the parking, I know Vina had referenced planning testimony in support of that. My sense is that as Mr. Vincenti has described, and also Mr. Murphy, there's the basic difference in this application is 2 employees, and that would be the 2 employees that would operate the recycling aspect of it. The rest of the site has already effectively been addressed with the amount of parking and the amount of employees with the concrete batch operation. And I would suggest that as has already been proposed, that in actuality, the parking that's being provided on the site is more than sufficient to absorb those 2 additional employees, especially since the 20 spaces that are being allocated for the trucks, when those trucks are out on the road, though, that space is available for the drivers to have their cars in those spaces while the trucks are being, while they're driving their trucks. And has been referenced earlier, those spaces are long enough for 2 trucks to be parked back to back. They're large or portions of the site that are devoted to that. So I don't see any adverse impact with respect to any deviation that may be required for the parking. And that would be my testimony, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
You're welcome.
Mr. McGowan?
That concludes our testimony as far as the experts. Any questions, we're happy to respond to.
Thank you. Ms. Sawant, as to Mr. Roberts.
I have no questions for Mr. Roberts.
Okay, Ms. Shapiro?
I have no questions either. Thank you.
All right, is the Fire Marshal still here?
Yeah, Jim, no questions. Thank you.
And is Ms. Drum still here?
I'm still here. No, no questions for me. Thank you.
And Mr. Sachs?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Board members, raise your hand if you have a question. All right, seeing none, I go back to you, Mr. McGowan. You have no more testimony this evening, right?
That is correct. We have concluded our presentation.
Okay, then I'd like to go to the public portion at this point, if it's okay with you, Mr. McGowan.
Please do.
This is matter 10-2021Z. It's 2 Girls Waterworks Road. It's for amended preliminary and final site plan of D1 and some bulk variances. If you've been listening, you know what the application is about. There's phone numbers in front of you to call in. This is the time to do so. The moderator of the program will take your call and announce it to the board. Ms. Sawant, is there anyone on the line at present?
No raised hands.
Okay, we're going to wait about a minute, folks. Once again, the phone numbers you see on the board in front of you are phone numbers that you can call in and access this meeting and raise any comments or questions that you may have about this application. We're dealing with this application only.
There are no raised hands, Chairman.
Mr. Sachs?
Mr. Chairman, we can probably close the public portion at this point.
All right, thank you. Public portion is hereby closed. Final comments, Mr. McGowan, and then are you going to decide on a vote? You want to talk to Larry about that first, or what you're going to do?
I think Larry and I both agree we need 5 votes.
Yes, sir. We're aware of that.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, I know one of the members jumped on late, Ms. Andrews.
Right.
So she did not hear all of the testimony of your engineer, so she would not be able to vote. So even though we have 6 here,
right,
she would not be able to vote this evening. I mean, I will permit you the courtesy that I like to do in these situations is to perhaps see if there's any board members who have any concerns whatsoever regarding any of the testimony, just to give Mr. McGowan some guidance.
Right, I didn't want to step on his toes quite yet if he had something else to say, but I was going to weigh in and say that obviously we've heard this application a number of times. The addition of this recycling area, I think, is beneficial not only from the town's, the applicant's point of view, but certainly the town's. You read Ms. Sawant's application, and it was mentioned certainly by Mr. Roberts, the reuse of materials that don't have to be taken to a landfill. And Ms. Sawant was eloquently wrote about that. And I believe there was something about credits that I also read that because kind of good points for the township. So I don't see any harm in what's going on here. I personally would support this application. I think it's a good repurposing use of that property. And obviously it's, I think, located in a good area to do so. Having said that, I'm going to go by each board member and I'm going to ask you personally whether you have a problem. And if you do, I'd like you to talk about it before we go for a vote. Mr. Connor, you're next to me on the screen.
I have no problem.
Okay, Mr. Scogno, as far as this application, you have any issues or problems?
Sir, not at this time.
Vice Chairman Dewhurst?
No, I agree with your comments, Jim.
Okay,
No problem.
thank you. And Ms. Gilda?
I have no problem.
Ms. Andrews, although you won't vote, I'm going to allow you to make a comment if you have any comments or problems with it. You have to take your unmute yourself, though. We can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself, ma'am.
Sorry, but
That's okay.
Okay?
Yes.
No, I was just concerned with regards to traffic, which
Right.
I think that the only thing that I guess I didn't hear was as long as there's no problem with water, environmentally, as far as the water, from what I had read there, there's going to be pipes, they're going to be large, and they're going to be able to drain off depending upon the type of soil, so forth and so on. And I'm
They have
just
their own-
glad,
They have their own retention basin on property.
yeah, okay, and I'm glad that they're moving the fire hydrant. That was my main concern is always fire marshals, their ideas first and foremost.
Understood. Thank you.
That's it.
Mr. McGowan, final comments?
I think that, we appreciate the comments from the board. We're anxious to proceed with the project. As the board knows, we're already well underway. And this is the final piece, and would like to be able to continue. So I would like to have the board vote this evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Sachs, this would require a D1 for the extra use, right? They already have the D1 for the use of the batch plant. This is for the recycling, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
And then the bulk variances that are attached to it.
Correct.
All right, let's vote on the D1 use for the recycling, the level B recycling. Someone in favor of moving it? I
move it.
will. All right, I'm sorry. Mr. Dewhurst moves it. I'll second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dewhurst,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Ms. Kilduff,
Yes.
Mr. Scogno,
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan.
Yes. The bulk variances. Someone want to move them?
I think there were
I'll
some
move
desi-
it.
There may have been some design waivers as well, Jim.
Yeah, I think there are.
Why don't we do that as a group? It's fine.
Can we do that? We can put that
Yeah.
in as well?
Yeah,
All right,
we
so
can do it.
both
Yeah.
the Cs and the design waivers as spoken about and on the record. Someone going to move that?
I'll move it, Kilduff.
Okay, is there a second?
Connor, I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Connor. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dewhurst,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Ms. Kilduff,
Yes.
Mr. Scogno,
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan.
Yes. It'll be amended preliminary, Larry?
Yes.
Amended preliminary site plan. I'll move it.
I'll
Second, Kilduff.
Who got it?
Kilduff beat him for one. Roll call.
Okay.
I'll give it one.
Thanks.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dewhurst,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Ms. Kilduff,
Yes.
Mr. Scogno,
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan.
Yes, amended final site plan. I'll move it. Somebody's got to second it.
Connor, I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dewhurst,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Scogno,
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan.
Yes, Mr.
And Ms.
McGowan, thank you.
Kilduff,
What's that?
Ms. Kilduff. I'm sorry.
Yes.
McGowan, thank you and all your professionals for the application and your testimony.
We appreciate the board members for your time. We thank the professionals and thank everyone for this evening.
Best of luck on the project.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
look forward to doing it.
Okay,
Good night, everyone.
have a great weekend, everybody. Board members, I don't have anything else on the agenda tonight. Mr. Sachs, do you have anything for us?
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I was going to say is I was actually supposed to have a trial tomorrow on the Metro Storage case, but Judge McCluskey adjourned it until the end of June.
Okay,
So nothing to report.
thank you. Ms. Silverman?
No, next meeting is the 20th. It's C night. We have 7 Cs.
7 Cs.
Wow.
Is that lucky or is that going to be unlucky? I'm not sure.
Well, there are 7 Cs, so that's pretty good.
Maybe. Ms. Shapiro, anything for the board?
No, Mr. Chairman, but I don't know if anybody had an opportunity to see the last council meeting. I had given a presentation on the courtroom upgrades.
I did, and I want to compliment you on such a great presentation. I sat through the whole thing.
Thank you. I don't want to take any credit. EI Associates, Ruben Garrido, he's the mastermind behind the plan and those conceptual renderings that we showed council that evening. It is available on YouTube if anybody missed it and wants to go back and take a look. I didn't want to air it again tonight and have people, rewatch the same, the same presentation. So I didn't bring it to you today, but everybody is invited to take a look at that presentation. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Well, you certainly made a great presentation in front of the council. I will give you that. Maybe you didn't do all the planning and all the engineering work.
Thank you.
Just the warrant, anything?
No, Chairman, I have nothing.
Okay, well, it's been fun, everyone. So having said that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Thank you, Ms. Gilda. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Good night, everybody.
Aye.
Happy Mother's Day.
Oh, happy Mother's Day to all the moms.
Happy Mother's Day.